Okay, we're at the Avenue condominiums. The Emma, the Drayton, I forget the other name, but we used to maintain this landscape, all three buildings, and I'm going to do a walkthrough. They have had another landscape company take over due to budget restraints the last couple of years, and it's just caused a lot of problems. So they did lose this tree here. I'll notice in old videos in the windstorm, and so they've added a few blue oats and things like that. All this looks fairly well. The Daphnes look like they've been trimmed pretty far back and have quite a bit of dead. So we might want to consider, there is new growth pushing here, but we might want to consider maybe replacing them. And then along with the lavender, have a good day, along with the lavender. And I think, as I review older videos, I don't remember them looking quite this bad, especially on the building down there, but it's something that need to consider. So ultimately, I need to put together numbers for some of the damages that have happened with the property, and then I'm going to get them a maintenance bid for lawn and bed maintenance and snow removal. So there were Arctic willows back there. You can see that they have not come back at all. The dogwoods have been trimmed back severely. It looks like there is some new growth on some of the shrubbery. But then I also see a lot of dead branches. So this may need to be considered into the estimate. We have 5 up here. 1, 2, there should have been 5, and then I think there were at least 3 huge Arctic willows, and then the most detrimental issue is they lifted all the pine trees. So I want to discuss, I want to consult with both Mitch, because I believe he's still managing all the trees on this property with Atlas, and then also Mike. And I'll do a separate video of the trees, just inquiring about that. The park strips areas look okay. They did mention that they cut down the roses a bit too far, and as I look at the cuts on the roses, they're pretty brutal. They're hacked back pretty far. The grasses look like they were trimmed down slightly far, so we'll see how those recoup. We may need to dig them up and split them next season. And then ultimately with these trees, maybe come up with either a solution to beautify. I mentioned Daphnes that can tolerate the exposure, the soil, and complement this area. But also they would love to get an estimate on bringing in large replacements and remove these trees as a cost option, which would potentially disrupt, it will definitely disrupt the irrigation. And then in terms of irrigation, making sure that things are watered enough properly. If we end up planting in the spring, it's going to be a couple years before anything gets to a mature level. And it's always a little challenging when everything is connected on an irrigation system to be watering new plantings when there's old in place. We also have all these spireas that look like they've been cut down too far, and for them to regenerate might be unlikely, or at least health. I don't know that they'll regenerate in a healthy way. Then again, back here, this whole area is pretty bare. We've lost all these shrubs, pretty depleted. This is a low light area, but we could reconsider the planting schedule back here. Similar with this, and Even these yews are concerning. I saw a mushroom back here, so it seems like the moisture throughout has probably been fairly consistent, especially me seeing the mosses. So it seems like things have been watered well enough. But I'm not sure why we're seeing some of this stuff that's dying. I think I need to look in our notes as well to see when we last cultivated the soil, because I think that would be beneficial for everything to bring more life to all of the plantings. These dogwoods, again, lavender. So this whole area probably needs redone. The daphnes, there's one missing over here, and then these are pretty badly pruned, and then just have a lot of dead in the center. And then that daphne is pretty depleted as well. This rose bush and that rose bush no longer match, so it's almost like this entire entryway over here would need rejuvenated. Then we have these 3 or 4 dogwoods. Looks like one is not quite making it. And then again, I believe these were either dogwoods or the Arctic willows. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. I would imagine maybe 5. And then we have, I need to look and see what this actually was. And then again, the yews. And I'm excited to bring this property back to life. It's definitely seen better days, and a similar situation here on this entry, where there's absolutely no daphne. The roses are kind of not healthy looking, and then of course the lavender has been pruned to a point where I just don't think it's salvageable. And then that dogwood, I don't really see a ton of new growth on it. Again, when I've observed some of the trimming, it's just a lot of broken with a machine, which can damage the shrub and not promote growth. So that might be an issue. These roses look like they're trimmed at the proper height. They're really pretty old roses. But again, you can see with the trimming that it was done poorly, and they really didn't have any clean cuts. I think these roses have had aphids before, but we can just release ladybugs in the spring for them. And then, you know, along the side there are hostas that we've also brought in some snail bait for, so that they don't get all holy. So again, these 2 trees as well. And that one down there. But all of them have been lifted, and then just the shrubs have been trimmed so severely that there is no longer any privacy, unfortunately, back here. So maybe coming up with some solutions in this area as well. And then this area over here is kind of the same. We discussed adding in some shrubs here, whether we do yews or some laurels, maybe break it up. It's a pretty low light area. It might be nice to add in some laurels just to give a different look. Some of the yews have done well, some not so much. This juniper has been still pushing and growing quite large. This is their garden area. Same with here, but it would be nice to do some base shrubs here on the entryways. And then this area they utilize for gardening, but I think starting at like this window here, we can add in shrubbery, and same with all down there. The sand cherry is pretty leggy, doesn't get enough light, so probably won't do well. And that Arctic willow has definitely been pruned improperly, so struggling. And then that dogwood, again, that's what all of them used to look like, so I can really tell that they have not done well. And then there's more shrubs down there that look like they've been trimmed. This tree looks a little sad. I definitely want to talk to Mitch about it because it's leaning and it might be wise to remove it. So it doesn't cause any damages. But this is the scope of the big building, and then they've kind of kept this all the same over here on the Drayton. Come spring, we'll just trim all this stuff back and let all the new fill in. And that's an area that we've always kept maintained and weeded. Similar with back along the garbages, there's lots of ivy that grows. These dogwoods don't look quite as bad. They're a little less mature than the other ones, but just haven't been trimmed down too severe. That hose probably needs to be disconnected, but we've got some volunteers down in that area that we probably need to get down and address before it gets too big. And some of the other areas, the Hoconi grass has been trimmed. This is all fairly basic here, which they've utilized the rock, but certain things like this just need to be taken care of. Maybe add in a couple more boxwoods in this area. It looks like one of the 9 barks may have died. But over these 2 buildings aren't as bad. Tracy mentioned maybe offering suggestion for something up here. Maybe we do true dwarfs and maybe have the color back behind. I could really see like a hydrangea true dwarf combination here that would look gorgeous and maybe eliminate the lavender altogether. And then over here, and that's the Emma building over here at the Drayton. These Daphnes aren't quite as bad as the others, but again, just trimmed improperly, poorly. There is a little new growth pushing, but I'm definitely concerned. So something we might want to consider. These roses don't look too bad. And then again, there's just kind of this area here where I feel like we could definitely spruce this up with minimal effort, to just make it a bit more attractive and pleasing. So that is a scope. I promised to get her an estimate for maintenance by next week. Talk to Luis about lawn and snow removal for the properties, and then discuss the trees with Mitch and Mike.